And now, get ready.
Keep up with FemiDlive for live updates on Twitter at FemiDlive, on Facebook at FemiDlive, Instagram at FemiDlive. All major platforms you would find FemiDlive. Send your messages and email femid@live.com to keep the conversation going even now. It's the start of another major week, and we're here again to discuss the very political life of Nigeria and the life of Nigeria as it relates to us. The good thing is, the thin line between real life and every other life that may have been described is going away very slowly. This is the real life. This is not a reality show. And if it were to be a reality show, it would have to be one that involves 200 million people who are trying to find out what happens next, the next day, and the day after the next, and the day after the next day. There's room for debate. There's so much to debate on this very evening. We have a new trekker. Well, one man has decided to trek on behalf of Ali Mondusheri's party, People's Democratic Party's faction. He will be taking on that trek in order to prove what exactly. That's a wonder. But from what I do understand, he's on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. He started off 9:12 a.m. this morning. Who knows how far he has come so far, so good. And also, reps are questioning and raising query about 250,000 naira sitting allowance of the sovereign wealth now team, supposedly sovereign wealth authority. 250,000 naira just to sit down, observe, mediate, think, maybe even keep quiet, maybe even sleep through the session. But whatever the case is, 250,000 naira will be part of what some people will take on in a time of recession. Also, human rights has raised the bar now. They're saying some of the IDPs have been raped over and over again in the camp. And they're pointing fingers now, sadly, the way of the Nigerian army in this regard. I'm also looking at information that would be of interest to you. Aliko Dangote, who is the president of Dangote Group, says 110 million. Wait, that was the vice president. His own figure talks about even more. In a country with close to 180 million people, if more than 50% are on the verge of poverty, is there really still a middle class to deal with? Tonight in the show, let's get started by observing a little bit about the trend of poverty from the 80s till how we got here. Our figures, percentage, are they still good enough to describe what one will call the Nigerian story? As some have even described to me, it's not just a story, it's a tale. Or are we just going through the motions and possibly suffering from political hypocrisy at this very point in time? This is the place to be. This is where the discussion begins. This is Room for Debate with FemiDlive. Welcome. Let's get started now.
Nothing breaks the news like the news. Trust me, I can prove it. I'm ready. Let's take on the biggest debates on radio, provide insights, experience, and build an unforgettable discussion together. I am Femi D. Amele. Let's talk with FemiDlive is on.
This is FemiDlive.
Thank you for joining in. Let's start with the ridiculous story now, because I'm wondering, I mean, you have to be healthy. You have to have a brain, and it's not a situation where your left brain supposedly joggles itself to the right-hand side of the brain, and the left chooses to go to the right. It's not really like the borderline of the sanity is being dropped. But I wonder what would be. Now, the reason why I do say this, some say it's a mean choice of words. I know you could say that. It's a mean choice of words to describe the sanity status of some Nigerians. Now, I wonder, what is the sense in trying to prove that you're a lawyer and you can be of effect or some sort of action to the likes of the Ali Modu Sharif People's Democratic Party faction? Now, I don't have a problem with the faction as I would think. I don't even care what they do or do not do. But when a 32-year-old man, Muhammad Isa, decides to embark on a journey from Lagos to Abuja in order to prove that somewhere in there his sanity is questionable. I'm right about what I say, is that somewhere in there his sanity is questionable. One would have to ask that very question. 9:12 a.m. this morning, they started his walk from the Beja footbridge in Lagos, Ibadan, with the concept of he's going to walk and trek and do all kinds just to support the youths who belong to Sharif at this very point in time. Last time we talked about trekking was during the 2015 election, when a man embarked upon trekking on behalf of the All Progressive Congress candidate at the time for president. And by the way, that was President Muhammadu Buhari. Yes, the president won. The young man felt good, and he had reasons to say, yes, I was right about this the whole time. I just want to prove that the president or the candidate of the APC at the time was a man you could rely on to provide and to restore the possible lingering glory of Nigeria that may be out there in terms of finance and the rest of it. So he embarked upon that work. Now, I tell you, it didn't even take a year from May 2015 till now before that same young man started to have a rethink. Why on earth did I work? What was there to prove in my work? What are you doing? Now, this is my point. It's not to say Muhammad Isa's choice is out of place. But then what becomes very, very questionable is, what are the ridiculous things that we subject ourselves to at a time like this to prove, to conceive, and to just visualize that we are loyal to key people, politicians, over and over again. Now, mark this, there's a big difference when you work to prove that you value the concept of democracy, but there's a decent amount of stupidity when you work to prove that you're loyal to a politician. Now, our problem started off not long ago. Over the weekend, I was very angry. I would spend some time reading about political hypocrisy. In the 16th century, now there was this concept that really did fly. Much of it is the fact that in that age, people knew nothing about how democracy and the rest of it should work. And guess what? That century was just very close. It was just about 2 or 3 centuries before America decided to embark on the journey of their democracy. So in the 16th century, people essentially believed and conceived in their mind that what I'm about to do is, I don't know it all, but somebody with a superior idea is moving towards providing with some sort of democracy. So in the age of being educated about democracy, they told them, press yes, support this person, vote like that, believe this person, everything went well. Something in the 17th century, people started to question, you know what, that guy from my father's village and from the other side of town, maybe he doesn't even really know what he's talking about when it comes to defining and providing democratic solutions and benefit for me, as we say it, the dividends of democracy. So he decides to venture into another concept and says, I have my opinion, you have your opinion. So I will do it this way, you do it that way. And that was the start of what one would call the many voices and the many angles of democracy somewhere in the world. 16th century version, 17th century version. Now I'm asking myself, what have I done in recent times that may be ridiculous just to prove to politicians that I'm in support of them? What are we doing? What are we loyal to? Are you ridiculously loyal without thinking about what you've been able to stand for or provide for? Are you one of those few people who believe that politicians are the same thing as democracy? If there's somewhere in there that it confuses you, it's sad. We have a long way to go in that regard. But somewhere out there, Musa Issa will be going through this Harmattan season, working from Lagos to Ibadan, through many of the other states as well, until he eventually arrived in Abuja just to prove his support. And at this time, I doubt if the politician even has enough money to give him. All right, well, things do work from time to time. Much of his words is, I have already planned my journey and I'll be trekking from morning till evening. Wherever dusk meet me, I will look for an accommodation there. After morning prayers, I will resume my trekking. When he was asked about security, oh dear Lord, they have me to be patient this evening. I'm trying not to lose my breath. But the very, very, very less intelligent man said he places his security in the hands of God. God protects everybody, land or sea. But here's the question. Why on earth would I want to work and go through, expose myself to security and outsource the common sense that they say is not very common? Why on earth would I want to outsource the security and the common sense of my sensibility that God so much took his time to provide, and then outsource that responsibility to God again? Let's be candid. God is not a fool. He gave us some few things. Let's not be foolish enough in our utilization of some of those few things. I think this is silly. That's just me being modest. And that's because I'm on radio this evening. Okay, so let's move on now. Now, the reps now are questioning the fact that 250,000 per seat in allowance for board members of Sovereign Wealth Authority is what they are unhappy about. Now, they say the House of Representative Public Account Committee has ordered that, much of the documents that best describes how 250,000 naira allowance is given to the team on the SWA should be questioned. They are raising questions about this. They said the development didn't go down well with the lawmakers, who discovered that in some days the board members sat 4 times. So, I sit my Nigerian body, that's me being modest again, right here on this chair, and in 4 sitting, I can get 1 million naira. Do you know what 1 million naira is right now? Forget if you're rich. You would understand this by the time we get into talking about the concept of poverty line. Just a few minutes from now. So 1 million naira in 4 sittings. And guess what? You don't really have to contribute. You don't have to prove you're intelligent. But somewhere out there, a team of Sovereign Wealth Authority supposedly gets 1 million naira for sitting 4 times. And by the way, that's per board member. I'm talking about 1 million naira for each person. So if 7 people sit, that's like 7 million naira. And God help us that they do not sit every day of the week. If they do sit every day of the week, 7 times 5, it shouldn't be too hard. 30 million naira. Imagine if they choose to come up with an excuse to carry over something for 20 days. 20 times 30. What does that give you? Sad number. Just a sad number. But in the defense, the managing director of the SWA, Mr. Ucho Obosi, said it's the standard practice of several sovereign wealth authorities worldwide to pay sitting allowances to board members. Well, that's his response. Now, when he was asked by the lawmakers if there's an evidence to prove that they were being paid as much as 1 million naira per day, the lawmakers raised the question and asked for a reasonable printout. Now, the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee in the House of Representatives, Kingsley Trinda, was angry about this. He said all relevant documents, not photocopies, should be submitted to the committee within the next 8 days. His words exactly: you're expected to furnish this committee with concrete evidence of where authorities pay as much as 250,000 naira per sitting in other climes. In other words, somebody meets, 7 board members meet, if they meet 4 times a day, they get 1 million naira. Where in the world does that happen? Where? At this time? Oh dear. All right, let's move on. I'm trying to keep my temper in check today. Louis, if I grow hot, just please find me cool so that I'll be cool in this regard. Other issues now. The Human Rights, what's the name now? Human Rights Watch on Monday accused Nigerian officials of sexually exploiting women and girls living in camps for victims of Boko Haram in Northeast. HRW said it's that in a document in July, 43 cases of women and girls in 7 internally displaced camps in Maiduguri, the epicenter of the 7-year insurgency, have been abused by camp leaders and vigilante groups, policemen and soldiers. Now, much of that report, let me read what one of the researchers did say. His name is Morsi Shegun. Is much of this description. He's a senior Nigerian researcher with the HRW. Their claim is simple. They say, it's bad enough that these women and girls are not getting much needed support for the horrific trauma that they suffered at the hands of Boko Haram. It is disgraceful and outrageous that people who should protect these women and girls are attacking and abusing them. Well, much of that is, they go on to say, 4 of the victims told HRW, the Human Rights Watch, that they were drugged and raped, while 37 of them were coerced into sex through forced marriages, promises, and materials and financial assistance. Let me read the story of one of them to you. It says, one day, this is a story of a 17-year-old girl. She says, one day, he demanded, this is her narrating I experienced with a policeman. One day, he demanded to have sex with me. I refused, but he forced me. It happened just that one time, but soon I realized I was pregnant. When I informed him about my condition, he threatened to shoot and kill me if I told anyone else. So I was afraid to report him. That's one story. The other stories stand one would find, the HRW report talks about, in some cases, men use their positions of authority and gifts of desperately needed food or other items to have sex with women. Since when did we start to lobby? Okay, I'm not going to include myself. Since when did some people start to lobby people desperate who have lost their homes, who are not sure of what happens next, with food items? Sleep with me and I'll give you a module of rice. Do you see? They just brought one bag of rice. I assure you, if you agree to my terms, I'll give you one bag of rice. I'm the one that counts. I'm the one in charge. Maybe this is what he said. What on earth could be said in such a way that would solicit these ladies to give in and to give out and say, despite all conditions, these men, after all, have been the one taking care of us. It doesn't hurt. He may shoot me, she may shoot me. I mean, you never can tell. This is the latest allegation that's coming now regarding this security personnel attached to IDP camps in Borno. And by the way, the presidency has responded to this. President Muhammadu Buhari said he's worried and shocked by the recent release of the Human Rights Watch report, which alleges sex abuse and exploitation of women and girls in camps for those displaced by the Boko Haram insurgency. He has therefore ordered an immediate investigation into the allegation. That's according to Garba Shehu, who is the special assistant to the president on media matters. Okay, so much of that is their findings will determine the next course of action for the government and define an appropriate response. Why the Nigerian military continues to work so hard, it's so unfortunate that victims of Boko Haram terrorism can soon return safely to their homes. The government will do its best to ensure their protection and welfare. Much of the statement made available now by the special advisor to the president, Garba Shehu, on this very incident. It's sad. It's sad. No, there's the part where you feel when rape happens, it's by force. It's done out of the fact that supposedly the man overpowered the woman. This is like forced prostitution. Give me this and you get that. You know you can't go anywhere else in the world right now. In fact, I have news. They said your village is totally down. There's nowhere to go. Stay with me, let me take care of you. These are just, these are the imaginative lies I could possibly conceive in my head that will have been told to some of these ladies. I can spend more time talking about this, but I'm just going to drop this anyway. I'm going to drop this. Let's come to the main discussion for the evening now. The president, Dangote Group, Aliko Dangote, has said that more than 100 million out of the country's estimated population of 187 million are wallowing in poverty. Well, he was speaking not too far away in Kuru, near Jos Plateau State here. He said it was unacceptable, given the Nigerians' abundant resources. He did say this much on Sunday. Much of this talk was a promotion of local manufacturing and poverty reduction in Nigeria. He said the private sector experience and policy options are there. He said it is estimated that more than 100 million out of a population of 187 million Nigerians live below the poverty line. He did go on to say 42% of this year's graduates, for youth unemployment had risen to 42%. Wait, 42%, right? Now, I tell you this. I'm one of the guys that gets to read the International Labour Organization reports every time it comes out. If you have a situation where you have unemployment margin around 25%, they rate it to say it's critical. If you have more than 25%, 25 to 30%, they say you have a crisis waiting to happen. Now, MBS reports and all the other reports cleverly will tell you, at least in one of the last reports, that unemployment is actually just lingering between a single digit and double digits, not exactly a bad double digit. When I say not a bad double digit, that could mean below 20%. So there are people in Lagos, Kano, Abuja, Port Harcourt seeking for white-collar jobs who are not employed, but out there holding on to their chin and waiting for 1,000 phone calls from 1,000 places that they have dropped 1,000 CVs. Is anybody getting this picture? So in 1 year, you drop your CV in 1,000 places. Let's say you do that in 3 months. And then you wait for another 3 months, waiting to get a call up from anybody at all would you. That's much I would say on unemployment. 1,000 places, 1,000 CVs, 1,000 calls being waited for. Now this, by the way, last time the likes of the MBS had the courage to look at the poverty line in Nigeria, that was in 2010, and the figures were not friendly exactly as well. At some point in 1980, Nigeria had a poverty line of 20 million people in 1980 who were living below the poverty line. 1985, it was about 38 million. 1992, conveniently I can tell you, it was 40 million people. 1996, it was 70 million people. 2004, the poverty line was about 75 or thereabout million. That's 2004, I beg to say. 2010, it stood at 115 million. That's 2010. Now, that means Alhaji Aliko Dangote is having even a conservative figure when he says 100 million. Because in 2010, if the poverty line was as much as 110 million, check with me. Today is the 31st day of October 2016. One could say, if you're a population of 187 million or thereabouts, even though people say we're blessed with children, so one could almost say there's more to that, maybe 200 million. Would it be right to really think that more than 50%, 60%, 70 or 75% of people are living below the poverty line? Trust me, I'm not trying to outsource the English here. I may be the guy with the big grammar, but I may be living below the poverty line. What side of the line do you belong? In fact, maybe that's the question I should be asking. If there's a poverty line that is being drawn out here right now, what side of the line do you belong? Do you still believe in the concept of a middle class? Where do we draw the poverty line? Or when poverty draws the line. Oh yes, that's even better. When poverty draws the line, which side of the divide do you belong? There are figures that best describe the fact that things are out of place completely on every side. On every side. At some point, 2006 National Population Census said, oh, we're doing fine. We're about 140 million people. That was 10 years ago, by the way. And my guess is we're more now. And our population have increased. In 1911, we were about 15.9 million. 1921, 18.7 million. 1931, 20 million. 1952, 30.3. 1962, 45.2. 1963, 55.7 million people. 1973, 79.8. 1991, 88.9. 2006, 140 million. 2010, 163 million. 2016, how many are we? And when poverty draws the line, what side of the divide do you think you belong? Are you rich enough to say I'm rich? Or are you poor enough to say I'm poor? How does this play out? It even states now that in the last 10 years, over 60%, that's according to UN now, in that zone. Meanwhile, in the 1980s, less than 30%. I'm looking at the graph here. It just keeps going high and high. It doesn't seem to be coming down. It almost gives you the appeal that was said some years ago when they say, truly, when something goes up in Nigeria, it apparently doesn't have a mindset of coming down. Is it true? Is it really true? Last week, the business index was released. The one that talked about whether we can do business in Nigeria, if it was favorable or not. Oh yes, that was a sad tale. That report I don't even want to go into now. The report didn't encourage anybody who would think as an investor and say, I'm thinking of coming to Nigeria. That report didn't look good. The Human Development Index as well. We are number 160 in the class of 177 countries. In fact, they say that when there's a recession, it's not as bad as it looks, but when your neighbor loses his job, you know it's bad. When you lose your job, alongside with the fact that your neighbor has lost his job, it's gone worse. What is the government doing, and what should the government be doing? When poverty draws the line, like in our situation now, can the numbers justify what we are going through? Can the numbers really tell the picture of the fact that this weekend, a man took 2 of his children and approached the market, for some reason conceived in his mind that there will be somebody available to buy those 2 children in order for, and then eventually they trace the mother of the child and find her home, and she's there eating with the other ones. And they said, we're here to arrest you. And she says, oh, you're welcome. Please let this one that you just brought back, let him sit down and eat first, because I'm sure he's been sitting in the market. Since when did it become so deep that we've lost our national emotion? That we've become supposedly and arguably now democratic victims, where the blame game doesn't matter anymore. The only game that there is to play is survivor. How are you surviving? How are you surviving? And what side of the poverty line, if you think you are, do you belong? Are you on this side? Are you on that side? Has the government done anything to even... I don't want to even go into the figures now. Or is this just a reality show with 200 million people waiting to wake up? I'll be back after this break. Hopefully I'll wake up to know that things are not as bad as it looks. But if then that's not the case, I would expect to talk to you. I'll be back after the break.
This talk show unravels your thinking, makes you stop to listen, engages you in a debate of opinions.
I believe this man knows what he is doing. He is a Nigerian.
And ultimately brings you to the king of talk radio, FemiDlive.
A day in politics is a year, but then who cares? Oh, you should care. It's not just about what was said or what happened, where, when, how, who knows where. Next, let's understand the story that changes our lives every single day. Join me every day for politics and current affairs more than ever before. I'm Femi D.
And now, get ready.
Keep up with FemiDlive for live updates on Twitter at FemiDlive, on Facebook at FemiDlive, Instagram at FemiDlive. All major platforms you would find FemiDlive. Send your messages and email femid@live.com to keep the conversation going even now.